Welcome to The Digital Forge, the podcast where we explore how technology, innovation and people are reshaping industry and the future of this region. Today I'm rejoined by Ashley Tate, one of Sheffield's most interesting and brilliant entrepreneurs. Ashley grew up here in the city, left school early, and by 19 had already founded his first company in Fit Property. Ashley's now stepped into a new chapter. He's co-chair of Sheffield Angels, backing early-stage founders and helping build an investment culture in the region that the region's lacked for far too long. Before we begin, please follow The Digital Forge on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. So when did you do Mina?
So Mina was an idea. So when you say, would I never do energy again? One of the lessons I learned through Split the Bills and through Snowdrop, which was the energy business, was there's no money to be made in buying and selling electricity as a supplier, but there's loads of money to be made around the outside of that.
Yeah.
If you can offer services related to energy, that's where the money is.
So actually, just to clarify, so do you think you'd have been able to do Mina? Could you do Mina because you'd done the energy company?
Yes.
So there you go. So actually doing the energy company was not a waste of your time because it created something that was going to be a huge success.
Yes. I mean, looking back, the only reason Mina came about and probably was successful is because of all the disasters I'd had previously.
That's a lovely way of putting it, by the way.
Yeah, okay. So I think, so this is where everything intertwines. It wasn't linear. So the idea for Mina I had in 2019. So this is while I was still in Split the Bills, still in Fit Property, but wasn't in there, I guess, mentally. Like I was in the middle of thinking I need to get out of these businesses. And I was trying to spend as little time in the office as possible because I just kind of, I don't know, I just lost interest. But one of the things that was on my radar is that electric vehicles were taking off, I would say.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, I was like, so where's the opportunity here? Because electric vehicles are going to consume as much energy as your average household. Like one vehicle, you know, to charge one vehicle to do around 10,000 miles a year is the equivalent of powering an entire house with electricity for a whole year. So I was like, well, there's got to be money in that. And I didn't really know, so I didn't really know what it was. I just thought there's got to be money in it. So, sorry, I'm trying to think of the relevant, how the events unfolded from there. So I think I started having thoughts around how we could position a consumer proposition here. And I thought, well, Split the Bills, charge students a fixed amount for their energy, and the profit came out, hopefully the surplus, or that was the model towards the end. I was like, imagine if we could go to an electric vehicle owner and say, it's £100 to charge your vehicle every month, and that's it. It'll never change. Pays £100, you charge it as much as you like at home, and we'll make the profit on the difference. I'd kind of done some models thinking, right, if we get the right energy supply, assuming that majority of people that buy electric vehicles aren't doing more than 10,000 miles a year, if we get one that does 20,000 miles a year, we'll lose money, but we'll make money on the vast majority. So I got this idea. But I was like, right, what mistakes have I made in the past? I was like, well, start a business on my own. Really didn't enjoy that. So I was like, right, first thing we need to do is find somebody to start this business with.
And why is that important? Why is it important to have a partner? Why was it important for you to have a partner? Was it just so you weren't going to be alone and having all these things happen just to you?
That was priority number one. Was I don't want to be on my own in a business because when the shit hits the fan, it doesn't matter how many great managers or leaders you've got. If they haven't got equity, they can just walk away tomorrow.
Yeah.
And number two was I'd started to learn what I was good at, and I wasn't good at operationally running a business. Like I was good at coming up with the idea, getting people excited about it, but running a business that's like on the ground, that was not my strength. So Sheffield Digital, which was a Slack channel at the time.
Yeah.
I joined Sheffield Digital, and I'd probably been on it 3 or 4 times. And I remember seeing a message from, I don't even know what channel it was in, but a message from a guy called Chris Dalrymple. He'd put something like, just moved to Sheffield from Manchester, quit my job, really keen to build a network in Sheffield. And I replied to him and said, great, I'll meet you for a coffee. Don't really know why. Just thought, sounds an interesting guy, I'll have a chat with him. And I think the first meeting, we just got chatting about who he was and what his background was and what he'd done before. He'd been product director at On the Beach, which was a company based in Manchester. They'd just been through an IPO. He joined when they were a startup, and he didn't like the IPO kind of corporate life, so he left. And I don't really know why I decided it was a good idea to tell him about this idea I'd got for Mina, but I just told him. I said, like, well, I've got this idea for Mina. It's this, it's that. This is what it'll do. And we just left it at that. And then I don't know whether he got in touch with me or I got in touch with him, but anyway, we decided to meet up for another coffee. And by the end of that meeting, I'd convinced him that it would be a great idea just to get involved in this business, and he joined me as co-founder in Mina.
Were you refining the idea together?
So he, after over an hour's coffee, I don't know what I'd said to him, but I'd convinced him that it was worth him taking equity in this business, not getting a salary, and him working on refining this idea with me. So it was after that we started refining this idea.
Right.
We then decided between the two of us that we needed a CTO, like we needed somebody technical. I said, oh, I know a guy. I know a guy from the gym. I don't know if he's any good or not, but I know who he is, and I know he does something to do with IT.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember me, Chris, and Andy Gunn, who became our CTO. We met in the Novotel in Sheffield. It was a really weird kind of setup. It was very dark and dingy. I think they definitely needed a refurb. Andy was less enthusiastic, I would say, or maybe a bit more cautious than Chris in wanting to jump ship, because he did have a family and a salary and nothing behind him to fall back on.
Yeah.
But anyway, convinced him again to join as a co-founder, and we launched Mina.
What skills did Chris have that you didn't, and why did you work so well together? What were the things that he brought to you and to Mina eventually, obviously?
I don't think either of us knew this at the time, but now I can look back over the last 5 years and I can say, like, Chris was operational. Like, he knew how to run the business, and the way I describe it now is he was inward facing, so he knew how to get all the right processes in place, make sure we got things like employment contracts, set up all the fundamental foundations that any business needs to succeed. Yeah. And I was out there just wanting to speak to customers and look at how we were going to market the thing. And I was the outside voice, he was the inside.
So it's back to this thing of, to be entrepreneurial, you've got to have somebody that is looking after the house, that everything has got to be in place. Mm-hmm. Or, as you said, the finances, the contracts, the legal stuff, everything. Mm. How did you start Mina? What was the goal? What was the product going to be?
So the product we set out to launch was, if you're a consumer and you buy an electric car, when you go into a car garage and you sold the car, they'll upsell you our product, which was going to be a fixed price charging package. So I was like, so in my head, I got this vision. I said, imagine you could go in and buy a petrol or diesel car, and you know how they sell you like alloy wheel protection or that kind of stuff. Imagine if they could sell you a package that says, for £150 a week, you can fill up this car as often as you like. Yeah, people would snap their hands off, right? Yeah. If it was, whatever the price was. I said, so we could do that for electric. I said, and the reason we can do it for electric is, the cost of electricity is known. Well, I thought it was, when I say known, like, while I didn't want to be an energy supplier, I knew we could go out and buy electricity from an energy supplier and lock in a deal for 3 years. Yeah. And I thought it'd be much more predictable in terms of how people would use it. So that's what we set out to build. So, ignoring how Chris and Andy joined us, we'd got Andy building the tech, we'd got Chris putting together, the foundations of the business, and I was out there trying to sell our concept to lease companies, and we actually got some lease companies interested. We got a website up. I was literally having phone conversations with people that had bought electric cars, electric vehicles, saying, "What's this? How do I sign up?" And luckily, after about a month of trying to sell this, we had sold it, but not to many people. I think we got about 5 customers. And I don't know exactly how this came about, but I remember having a conversation with Chris and Andy, and we decided that we should look at what the B2B or the business opportunity here was.
Yeah.
And there was a guy from a company called Mighty. So Mighty, at the time, they're a facilities management company. They were, leading the way in terms of moving their fleet over to electric vehicles. The fleet manager had said, I think he'd put this on LinkedIn. He said, if anybody's got a solution, or maybe put it in a trade magazine, I can't remember, one or the other. He'd gone out there and said, electric vehicles are the future. We're going to set the example and lead the way in terms of moving our fleet over to electric. But the biggest problem is I can't get my drivers to charge their vehicles at home because it impacts the home electricity bill. But I need them to charge at home because that's the cheapest place to charge. Does anybody have a solution to this? We need effectively the same as what a fuel card does that works for drivers at home. And I thought, I know how we can solve this. And again, thinking about split the bills and the energy company, I was like, I know exactly how all these bits hang together.
Yeah.
So I think I sent this guy, I think it was a LinkedIn message. I sent this guy a LinkedIn message. I said, I've seen your comment. I think I've got the solution to your problem. He said, great, come down and meet me. Me and Chris went down to the Shard. This was literally just before COVID happened. And I think he knew, I was very honest. I didn't go in and try to fake it too much. I just said, I've set up this business. It's called Mina. We're doing this for consumers. I hear your problem. I think I can solve it. Basically, will you give us a chance to prove we can solve it? And he kind of just, I think he just backed us. I think he just, I don't know how we convinced him that it was a good idea to put a bet on these 2 guys that had got no product and no evidence that they could solve this problem. And this was a FTSE 100 business that, probably had to do a bit more due diligence on the suppliers. But anyway, we convinced him that we could build the product. He said, well, if you can build the product, we'll put it out there and we'll trial it. COVID happened. We thought, well, that's the end of that. That was, 6 months of trying to get a business off the ground. And COVID was probably the best thing that happened to us because we were trying to build a product that we were going to sell to fleet managers. Fleet managers were busy twiddling their thumbs at the time because none of their fleets were doing anything. They were all grounded. So we managed to have some amazing conversations, just, sat locked up.
2 things that are interesting, with lots of things that are interesting from that. But the first thing is, so many startups have a business plan and they're so rigid that when the facts change, they don't sort of move and change with it. And you absolutely categorically did. And that moment of people are searching for product market fit, that's the magic elixir of companies, because when you get it, things take off. When did you know that you'd got product market fit? When did you know that you okay, this is now going to work? What was the moment? What did it feel like?
I think the moment we knew we got product market fit was when we went down to meet the guy at Mighty, who was looking after this enormous fleet at the time. I don't know exactly how many vehicles they got. They got around 5,000 vehicles, and they said, we need to transition these over to electric, and this is our problem. We need to fix this problem. Nobody's got a solution to this problem. It does not exist. was like, okay, well, there's a pain. There's a real problem. This is a real customer saying, you fix this problem, I'll pay you for it.
Yeah.
And if we can fix it with this person, this one customer, we've got essentially 5,000 users.
Yeah.
Well, how many more customers look like that? And it didn't take us long to figure out there was people like BT OpenReach, like 20 odd thousand vehicles, like British Gas, 10,000 vehicles. We were like, okay, well, this is starting to add up pretty well here. So we very quickly just said, right, ditch the consumer stuff, like, forget about that. Throw all our eggs into this B2B basket.
How quickly did you grow?
So, again, there's too much to talk about on the podcast, but it's like almost every mistake we'd made through Split the Bills and through Snowdrop, I was like, we cannot make this in Mina. Like, we're building this business. We'd all agreed we were building it to sell. So I was like, right, we need to get our finances in order. We need to get our contracts in order. We need to get all our HR stuff in order. So the first year, I will answer your question about how fast we grow. The first year was really about, let's get the foundations right.
Yeah.
Let's build a product that's good enough to generate revenue from. So in the first year, we probably had about 100 users on the platform. Mighty was our first customer. While they did have this fleet of 5,000, it was a very slow migration. It was like every time they take a diesel vehicle off, we'll put a petrol vehicle off. Then we did a press release, and this was kind of a bit of a lesson. I kind of always had this in the back of my mind, but, ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
We somehow got their fleet director to agree to us going out with some PR saying Mina are working with Mighty. Mighty were well known at the time in the kind of fleet world of like Fleet News and all these kind of industry magazines for leading the way with electric vehicles. Press release went out. All the big companies got in touch with us. We were like BT, British Gas. They were the two big ones I can think of. But we were, so they approached us basically and said, like, we've got exactly the same problem. If you're solving it for Mighty, they must have done the due diligence. It must be good. Can you do it for us? Then we got the attention of a company called Allstar. They're a big fuel card business in the UK. The biggest fuel card business in the UK. I'd never heard of them at the time. I had no idea how big they are. They've got well over 1 million fuel cards out there. I had a conversation with them. They said, can we partner with you? We've got all these customers. You've got a great product. We can start selling your product to our customers. Seemed like just the perfect synergy. They were our route to market, right? We did this partnership. Selling this, they were our sales team. I'm sorry, I'm trying to explain the series of events as it goes along. We weren't making a lot of revenue from each unit. That was, I guess, the problem. This was like, at the time we were selling this thing at £2 a unit, and now when I look back, that's the biggest lesson in pricing. Like, because by the time we exit that business, we were selling basically the same product at £10 a unit. So you more than double your prices. They approached us and said, after we partnered with them, they approached us and said, are you interested in raising investment? I'm not sure how much of this I can say, but I'll tell you the early part because I think I can get away with saying this without getting into trouble. But I remember Tom, who became my boss after they acquired us, rang me and he said, are you looking for investment? Like, we kind of thought about looking for investment, but we weren't actively looking for investment. And I was in the car, I remember I was driving, and I said, oh, yeah, we're looking for investment. We're putting a deck together and we're about to go out and raise. I wasn't lying, but we were probably not quite that advanced. He said, oh, how much do you want to raise? I said, 1 million. I don't know why I said 1 million. Like, it just rolled off. Just what? I just thought, 1 million sounds like a nice round number. And he said, all right, what's your valuation? And I said 5 million. I was trying to do some quick maths in my head of like, what's 20%?
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, okay, cool. I'll leave it with me. I was like, I don't quite know what I'm leaving with him here. And I don't know how long later it was, but it wasn't a week later. He came back and said, "Yeah, we'll do it." Right, God, raising money is easy. And I didn't really realise how big All-Star and their parent company Corpay were. I mean, Corpay is their parent company's S&P 500.
Yeah, pocket change, yeah.
So anyway, did the deal. They put some money in. We spent it all. Again, I guess in hindsight, lesson learned, we spent it far too fast on engineers and building the product. We raised a bit more from them, and it was just, I say luck. I don't think this was just luck. Like, we got to the point where we thought, me, Chris and Andy, who were the co-founders in Mina, were like, well, if we want to sell this business, All-Star are the obvious buyers. Like,
yeah,
they are the people that's going to buy us. So we can either spend the next 5 or even 10 years building revenue, trying to generate profit, and then we'll get to the place where they're probably going to offer us a multiple of our profit. Or we can try and play the card of buy us now and you'll pay a lot less than what you would in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
And so we decided we were going to become a thorn in their side and almost force them to buy us. And we were nice about it. When I say a thorn in their side, so we started going after their customers. So while we were partnering with them and they were selling our product to their customers, we were selling our product to them at wholesale and they were selling it to their customers at retail.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, why don't we just target their customers directly? We know who the big customers are. We'll start selling to them at retail. And it was interesting because I thought, well, big corporates probably won't want to go to the little guys. But we went to them and said, oh, we're backed by All-Star.
Yeah.
We're not the big corporate giant that All-Star are. We'll make life easier for you.
Yeah.
You buy it from us. All-Star didn't necessarily like that. It was uncomfortable for them. And I guess it kind of, it didn't force the hand, but it definitely raised us up on their radar of a company that they really should be acquiring for capability and de-risking from the point of view that,
I mean, it's a really interesting story and something that lots of people don't understand, which is how do you get acquired, and it's certainly a strategy which is to be a thorn in the side, which is, you very eloquently put it, which is just basically taking market share, taking customers away. And on valuation, and I'm not going to ask you how much you sold it for, don't worry about that, but I think I already know actually, but I won't say it. But when people overcomplicate valuation, I think there was always a multiple of revenue, etc. Frank Cotrone's a good friend of mine, and is probably the number one M&A guy in the world in the United States. He's done all the big deals, and he once told me stories. I said, "How on earth did you sell that company for X billion?" And he's like, "Well, ignore all the maths and all multiples. You have a strategic value, and you have a strategic value that you can justify anything with multiple of this, forward-looking revenue 3 years out, all of that stuff." And it feels to me that's what you did. That the valuation was that strategic value, which is what is it strategically worth to this company right now? And as you eloquently put it, you're going to pay a lot more in 3 years.
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, there's definitely the scientific way of valuing a business, and I think if you exit to private equity, you're probably backed into that scientific corner a lot more.
Yeah.
If you exit to trade, you can almost name your price. Like, not name your price, but selling to trade, or certainly the way we sold to trade, it was getting the right people emotionally bought in to why this was good, why this was a good acquisition.
So you've sold Mina, and you're now comfortable. And it's kind of a nice place to be, isn't it? When you don't have to worry about, being able to afford the mortgage and all this other stuff that you can. So how much time did you take off, and how quickly did you jump into the next thing? Because we were discussing it earlier. It feels, For me, people will say, why don't you? But my hobby is business, right? It's kind of, some people do golf and, I do other things, but kind of business feels like a hobby. It feels like it is to you too, because you've been doing it for so long. How quickly did you jump back in?
Well, so we sold the business in 2023, but part of the deal was I had to stay on for 2 years. It was a kind of a weird situation because it wasn't an earn out. It was don't leave and don't get fired for 2 years. So, I'd gone from working for myself and as we talked about, doing all these startups to then becoming employed by an enormous corporate. And it was like literally, it's like I'd landed on the moon. Like I was so out of my comfort zone. And not because it was hard. Like what was weird about it is it was like remarkably easy. It was just a different way of going about business.
I just couldn't. I got acquired once. I worked for somebody for 6 months. I was supposed to stay like you for a 12 to 24 month earner. I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. How the hell did you manage to do that?
Well,
did you stay for 2 years?
I stayed for 2 years. Yeah. So for the first 6 months, I think we were all in this place. We were like, I don't think we're going to make it 2 years. I mean, at one point we were like, I don't think we're going to make the first year. But we had deferred, part of the money was deferred based on the fact we stayed. And then I actually started to quite enjoy it. It was about 18 months in. I was like, I quite enjoy this. And I'd gone from this mindset of, I really don't enjoy it. In fact, I absolutely hate it, to what can I learn from this business? Because this is an incredibly successful business, multi-billion-pound market cap. If I don't take this 2 year opportunity to learn something, I'm wasting my time.
So you treated it a bit like an MBA?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I kind of threw myself at it. I was still well out of my comfort zone, and I think there were people, I was almost trying to understand. I was not in my comfort zone, I'll put it that way. But yeah, there was so much to learn, and I did genuinely start to enjoy it towards the end. And there was a point where I was like, maybe I could just stay and do this and work my way up and climb the corporate ladder. And then I think reality hit, and I thought, no, actually, that's just not who I am at all.
Just out of interest, so you had a 2 year earnout. How much past the 2 years to the day did you stay?
Well, I'd got it in my mind that I was going to have my notice in on the date that the first day I could have my notice in, which was 1st of February.
Yeah, you know the exact day and time. Yeah,
I'd got it on my calendar. And then I was having a chat with my boss at the time, Tom. Really got on with Tom. He's my age, I guess, which is quite young for someone so senior in a big corporate. So we got on really well together. He was like, will you stay? So I've spent 2 years thinking, how the hell do I not get fired? The rest of the company spent, Tom and his senior team have spent 2 years thinking, please don't leave. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, right, no. Yeah. Anyway, so I stayed for about 2 months after. And then it was the biggest relief ever when you left. Like, I felt like I've just, I think, I hear a lot of people saying I was lost and got depressed, and I hear that a lot, but I wasn't in that space. I was just like, let's just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy it, but I'd kind of got to this point, and I'd got to this point where I knew, as long as it's anything really stupid, I don't have to work the rest of my life now. I thought, right, I could stop work, and that's a nice feeling to have.
Yeah.
But then it was like, but what could you achieve? Like, having gone through all these disasters, having built Mina and done everything we did there, and spent 2 years at Corpay and learnt how the corporate world works, I was like, what could I do if we really tried?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was only a few months ago. And I've been thinking about conveyancing. We've had the chat about this, and I thought it just feels like a broken industry. It's a massive industry. Like, it's not going anywhere. What can we do there? So, I guess, long story short, November, where are we now? December. Me and Andy, co-founder in Mina, decided to go again. So we're about 6 weeks into figuring out what we can do in that space.
It's what's interesting about this story. It's a fascinating story, but one of the interesting things to me is that I'd not realised before is that Mina actually feels to me now like it was V4.
Yes.
It was because you'd started out, because looking at it on paper, they all felt like completely disconnected businesses, but it turns out that they were all connected in quite a straightforward way, and that Mina was, you realise that owning an energy company was not a good thing because you can't hedge, because you need gazillions to hedge, and as soon as there's a change in energy prices, you're left holding the baby, and that's can be a really serious problem. But building infrastructure around it, really interesting. So actually, the next move is actually not connected to those. I don't think it's connected to those things. I can't think of a reason. Well, it is actually because of the property business. It's connected to that. So maybe this is like a V5, V6 of this. And the thing that I'm really pleased that you're doing, genuinely, is one of the things that pisses me off is that you get entrepreneurs in the UK that make some money, have a success, and then don't come back into the ecosystem and give something back. Because we know how to, I know how to create a business. You know how to create a business. There's a way to do it. And, one of the things that I firmly believe in is that you have to have customers with you. You have to be building stuff that people want to buy. Sounds straightforward when you say it, but lots of companies seem to forget doing that. And the stuff you're doing with Sheffield Angels is really cool. I really like that. So just talk to us a little bit about how that came around and who's involved with it and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so Sheffield Angels came about because I bumped into a guy also from Sheffield called Andy Evans. Met him at an event, we got chatting. He'd exited his business and he'd started putting some money into early stage businesses. Turns out we'd both invested in the same company. In fact, it's a company you've invested in, Forgeor.
Yeah.
And Andy said Andy was part of a group called Cambridge Angels. He travelled to Cambridge every month to be part of this group. He said, I'd love to start something in Sheffield that's just like Cambridge, but he said, I don't really know anybody in Sheffield. And I said, well, I don't know anything about Cambridge Angels, but I said, I know quite a few people in Sheffield who have exited businesses and probably would be interested in investing. So, again, I guess we ran this a bit like a startup in that Andy was the guy that was organised. I was the guy that knew how to... I knew people. So I contacted a few people I knew. I said, we want to put together this angel network. The plan is to try and get people together. We weren't going to meet... We weren't going to, and we still don't, meet every month, but we meet every quarter. We have a dinner. We invite some ideally local Sheffield startups along to pitch, and the people in the room can then invest their own money. They can invest their own time. The whole concept is people that have built a business from the ground up and got out, been there, done it, worn the t-shirt, not just purely advisors, who can really get in and get their hands dirty and help with money or help.
How many deals have you done so far?
This year we've invested in 3.
Excellent.
Which is probably 2 more than we'd expected. We said if we can do 1 in the first year, that's a success. And
can you talk about the businesses that you've invested in?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so San Sanoma was a university spin out. again, this is interesting because we all came, all the members, or I would say 99% of the members, investors, mostly software background. So we all thought, great, we'll get some software businesses. First investment we made was in a biotech company spin out from Sheffield University. None of us knew anything about it, but the lady who's the CEO and the founder, she's very credible, very convincing, and people say, back people, not ideas.
Yeah,
and I think that's
absolutely
an example of that. Another Sheffield University spin out called Fast. They're making essentially this is really testing my knowledge about what they do, but it's bioplastic, basically. So not oil based plastic.
Yeah, it's a PHA based plastic.
That's right. Yes.
That's formed, really interesting, fascinating, actually, formed from bacteria.
Yes,
I'm really pleased that you guys have done that deal, and I think the guy who's launching it is a really lovely bloke, and that's really important for the world, that we have biodegradable plastics.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, it's a hot topic at the moment, and then the third one we've done is a company called Microneedles, and they're all it's essentially to do with micro dosing things like vaccines.
Yeah,
but instead of having just a injection, it's a patch, and it deals with
excellent.
So yeah, again, we know nothing about this space, but very credible guy, and I think the one thing that's come out of Sheffield Angels is it's all about people.
Yeah, and you're investing in some really interesting, not apps. You're actually investing in real, really interesting companies. Mm-hmm. And how many people have you got in the Angels now? How many individuals are part of it?
There's about 15 members now.
Excellent.
So we, various different backgrounds, but all from Sheffield, which is, a lot. And a lot of people say, "Oh, there's not much going on in Sheffield." Like, there's loads going on in Sheffield. We just not very good at talking about it.
So that's absolutely fascinating. Actually, just a couple more questions before we close off. Do you think you're ever going to retire?
I don't think I'll ever retire. But I definitely have had a taste for, you don't need to work 60 hours a week.
Yeah. What advice would you give to the 16-year-old and the 20-year-old now, do you think? What advice would you have given to yourself? Would you give to yourself if you could go back? Or what would you have done anything differently?
Would I have done anything differently? It's hard to say if I'd have done anything differently, because if I'd have been able to give myself some lessons that may have stopped me failing, I may not have learnt the lessons that helped me succeed. So I've had quite a lot of conversations with people who are, just starting out in their career, very young, want to start a business. And sometimes I hear them say, and who am I to judge, really, because sometimes they could go on and be massive successes, but even if they fail, in fact, if they do fail, they'll probably learn more from that failure than them starting a business that succeeds. You've just got to be brave and get out there and do it. But what's available now that wasn't available when I was 16 is YouTube. There is so much value and so much education to be had from YouTube. At the same time, there's a lot of nonsense to be had. So you've got to follow the people that have been there and done it.
Actually, that was absolutely fascinating, and many unexpected stories, actually. And I especially like the using failure as a strength, not as a weakness. And I think there's a lot to be learnt from that. And the incredible candor and honesty of your story I'm really taken by it. So that was Ashley Tate, a founder shaped by early responsibility, deep curiosity, and the real world of building companies. Someone who's experienced both hard edges and the high points of entrepreneurship, and is now helping the next generation through Sheffield Angels. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or follow The Digital Forge on Spotify or Apple so you never miss what comes next. Thanks for listening.
What if your aligner system could drive more profit for your dental business? With PureTech Clear Aligners, our AI-powered software delivers instant smile previews. Our custom aligners, proudly made in Sheffield, arrive in just days, not weeks. Patient wait times are reduced with localised labs, and our revolutionary technology offers smoother workflows, higher conversions and happier patients. Be part of the future of aligner care. Start your pilot today at puretech.ai. PureTech Aligners. Smile brighter, smile sooner.